This episode of 217 Tales is sponsored by Bob Riding, serving Central Illinois for the past 48 years with 8 locations. Learn more at bobridings.com. We are visiting with Angela Cummings. She's the executive director of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Angela, good to see you again.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We wanted to have you on to kind of give us the down low, if you will, the basics of the mental health situation, not only in the state of Illinois, but for everybody, and go through a few things with you. Number one, mental health. What's the top 3 things we should be aware of here?
Mental health is so critical to our mission of suicide prevention. And Mental Health Month is so critical to that as well, because it really gets people thinking about it. We know that when someone dies by suicide, about 90% of people who die by suicide have a mental health condition at the time of their death. Now, it may not have been diagnosed or it may not be adequately treated. So that's why it's so critical to get mental health awareness and care kind of into the public sphere like we're doing here today. And the other thing that we know as a fact is that 1 in 4 of us will at some point in our life experience a mental health condition. It could be something that, is situational, that comes on quickly and it resolves kind of on its own, or it could be something more chronic where you need to, reach out, seek help. And we know that when you seek help and get help, then most people who have a mental health condition have absolutely perfectly normal, happy lives. So it's absolutely critical to be aware of mental health, to seek mental health care when you feel like you need some help, and then to just make sure that you're trying different types of treatments. There's so many just different options for treatments: talk therapy, medication, meditation, yoga. So there's a whole menu of things that you can do to take care of your own mental health.
What should we either, number one, be aware of in our personal situations, or number 2, signs from other people that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, great question. So basically, there are observable warning signs that somebody is reaching a crisis moment with their mental health. And those are typically displayed in 3 main ways: talk, behavior, and mood. And those are just what they sound like. So someone who is really reaching a crisis point will often use certain types of language. They'll talk about it. They'll say it right out loud. They'll say, "I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I feel like I'm a burden. I feel like maybe everyone would be better off without me. I'm no good. What is my purpose?" Like, these are things that you would expect to hear, right? Behavior could be anything abnormal that you might hear, that you might notice with their behavior, like giving possessions away, giving away prized possessions, things that they really care deeply about. Suddenly, they've just given it to somebody. I don't need it anymore. Or they're not participating in activities that they once really, really enjoyed. And that's a clear sign that something may be up. The other thing about behavior is that it can be kind of antithetical, not what you're expecting. But sometimes people who are severely depressed they will act out in anger. So they may seem more aggressive. And this is typically true with, I hate to say it, but men. A lot of times depression will manifest as anger or irritability more than like sadness or sleepiness, the things that you might normally associate with someone who's experiencing depression. And then mood. Again, that's one that's more subtle. I mean, everybody has bad days, but if people are really just withdrawn and into themselves, not appearing to enjoy anything, not going out and being with friends, just distracted and not really in the moment, that's a clear sign that something may be wrong. And, we always say here at American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, you don't have to be a mental health professional to notice these things, and you don't have to be a mental health professional to reach out. We just say, trust your gut. If you feel like something is wrong, speak up and say something, because a lot of people are probably noticing the same thing, and I bet a lot of people aren't saying anything.
Once again, we're visiting with Angela Cummings, the executive director of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. All of these things you've been mentioning, what do we do / where do we go if we notice some of these things?
Right. So we actually have a little microsite on our AFSP.org site, or you can just Google Real Convo. And those are tips for starting a conversation, right? Real Convo. We know that it's awkward and weird to talk to somebody about their mental health, even if it's somebody close to you, but particularly if it's like in the workplace or somebody on one of your sports teams. Maybe it's just somebody that you're acquainted with, but not really very, very close to. And so how do you start that conversation? So we do have a lot of tips for starting the conversation. And we also have, just special for Mental Health Awareness Month, we have Talk Away the Dark. So again, if you were to Google Talk Away the Dark, you'll again find a great site that has all these tips for starting these conversations. I mean, the best thing I can say is just ask directly, be really direct. Don't beat around the bush and say things like, are you thinking of hurting yourself? I mean, no, they're in pain. They're thinking of trying to get out of that. They're thinking not hurting anymore is what they're thinking of. It's a confusing question. You just want to be direct. You want to say, I've noticed that you really seem to be struggling. You're not yourself. You seem distracted. Is there a way I can help? And if they open up and start talking, you can say, has it gotten so bad that you've considered suicide? Have you thought of ending your own life? That seems like a strange thing to say, but science and data show us that when you ask directly, it's really a relief to the person because it's an uncomfortable topic for them to broach to and scary. So you've just made it less scary. So definitely you just want to have that conversation. You want to open up the dialogue. Then when they do start talking, you don't want to minimize anything they're saying. All that matters is the way that they're experiencing their pain at that moment. It doesn't matter if we think it's frivolous, trivial, maybe it's a teenager and they're having their first breakup and you don't want to say something like, oh, you'll get over it. Nobody marries their high school sweetheart. This happens to everyone. It doesn't matter. What matters is how they're experiencing that moment right then. And if it's the worst pain ever to them, that's where you got to meet them at. That's how they're experiencing it. Once you've had that conversation, once you've talked to them, if they seem like they really need some extra help and you're both confused about what the next step might be, I always just say, call 988. 988 is that new 3-digit number. Some polls are telling us that only 20% of Americans are even aware of 988, which seems just outlandish to me because I feel like I'm talking about 988 every 5 minutes, but apparently people are still confused about it. It's the new Suicide and Crisis Hotline. You can call it at any time. You don't have to be at that crisis point. You can just say, I need to figure out what resources are close to me. I'm a little bit concerned about my friend, or I'm concerned about myself. What would you think are the next steps? And they'll help you they'll guide you through that. You don't, again, have to be the professional.
Great information from Angela Cummings. She's the executive director of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and unfortunately, suicide is a big part of that. Angela, thank you again for visiting with us, and we appreciate it very, very much with your great information.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much.